Tennessee Capitol Report is made possible in part by
Some games aren't played for glory. Some are played for more important reasons. That's why we partner with schools to re-energize physical education with Shape the State.
And with support by the following members of the Tennessee Credit Union League. With additional corporate support from AT&T, Rethink Possible.
Welcome to Tennessee Capitol Report. I'm Chip Hoback, and for the next half hour, we'll provide an overview of the key issues being considered by Tennessee legislators in 2015. We'll meet the leadership of the 109th General Assembly, shaping the direction of the new session. On today's show, we'll talk with Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey and the Speaker of the House, Beth Harwell. In January, the House and the Senate met in joint convention for the inauguration of Governor Bill Haslam to begin his second term in office. But in February, it was time for our legislature to get to work. Let's take a look back at some of the news events from the opening days of the 109th General Assembly. The 109th General Assembly was quickly pressed into duty in a special session called by Governor Haslam to consider his new health care plan.
After nearly 2 years of hard work, we have a Tennessee-specific plan that addresses health outcomes and cost. This is not Obamacare. If it was, it wouldn't have taken us this long to negotiate, and I could have saved a lot of trips to Washington and a whole lot of phone calls. Insure Tennessee is a 2-year pilot program that will not create any new taxes for Tennesseans and will not add any state cost to the budget. Once the 100% federal match is lowered to its eventual 90%, the Tennessee Hospital Association has committed that the industry will cover any additional cost to the state. The program will automatically terminate in the event that either federal funding or support from the hospital changes in any way.
But the plan died quickly in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, in spite of Maryville Senator Doug Overby's passionate arguments.
But on the issue of whether this is good public health policy, again, really the testimony as far as public health policy was unanimous. Insure Tennessee is good public health policy.
4 ayes, 7 nays, 0 present not voting.
Motion fails.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Senator Overby.
Joint convention will come to order.
On February 9th, the legislature opened its regular session with the governor's annual State of the State address, when he pressed for increased education funding.
There is nothing more important to our state than getting education right. That's why in this year's budget, we are proposing nearly $170 million more for K-12 education.
And business tax reforms.
To remedy that, we will file the Revenue Modernization Act, which aims to level the playing field in terms of sales tax and business taxes. We are committed to Tennessee remaining a low-tax state. This proposal simply brings us in line to better compete with other states and to not put our own state businesses at a disadvantage, which we are doing today.
With Governor Haslam's budget proposals in hand, the work is now underway at the 109th General Assembly. We're coming to you from the beautiful Legislative Library at the State Capitol, right across the hall from the Senate chambers, where our first guest presides as Speaker. Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey is our guest here. Good to see you, sir, and welcome to the first edition of the Tennessee Capitol Report.
Good to be here, Chip. Love doing these.
Now, we had some significant weather events last week and caused quite a bit of damage across the state, in both snow and ice in Middle Tennessee, and some counties in the plateau are still having electrical outages. What has been the economic impact of that storm so far?
I've not seen a dollar figure because we're more concerned about what the impact on lives. I know we've lost about 30 lives now in the state of Tennessee. That was the latest update, and I've been staying in constant contact with David Perkey with Homeland Security, and they're doing with TEMA. They're coordinating with the THP, with the local emergency management authorities, as well as National Guard. I know we've had the National Guard mobilized at least once to try to get people off interstates. It didn't work out. They had to use them, but they were mobilized and ready to go. So the bottom line is we're concerned about the lives and make sure people are safe. And it's a shame that, especially in Middle Tennessee with the ice, Northeast Tennessee where I live, we hadn't had ice, but right now we have about a foot of snow up there and expecting more tonight. So it's an unusual weather pattern, but I think we've weathered it well, no pun intended, to make sure we get past this and keep lives lost to a minimum.
It also affected the schedule of the legislature because we had to take some time off. How is that affecting the schedule going forward?
Well, not a lot. I think, thank goodness it happened at this time of year, if it's going to happen this time, because the first week or two of session, what we're doing is just having first reading and second reading on bills as required by our Constitution, and then those bills are assigned committees for committee hearings. So we're back into the committee hearings now, and even though we missed one day last week, we were here, we only had 24 members at one time. It takes 22 to have a quorum, but we could at least go through that first reading and second reading, keep everything on schedule. So we're a little bit behind, yeah, a little bit, but in a great scheme of things, we'll be able to make that up over the next few weeks.
All right. The special session was called to go over the Insure Tennessee plan from the governor, and it took a couple of years to plan, and in a couple of days that was gone.
Well,
tell us the impact of that and what the plans are going forward.
I think it was a little premature to bring it to a special session. Looking back on the governor, I've talked about this. There was nothing in writing. It was a plan from the federal government that was just a verbal agreement with the federal government. I'll be honest with you, I don't trust the federal government sometimes in writing, let alone if it's a verbal agreement. And so most of us want to say, well, we want to see this written down on a piece of paper. There are a lot of other unanswered questions. We began by saying we're going to cover about 260, 270,000 people, then the figure starts inching up to about 400,000. There was questions to whether actually this is supposed to be a 2-year pilot program. At the end of the 2 years, when the federal money leaves, or at least part of it, that we could disenroll these people. Well, could we actually disenroll them because there'll be federal lawsuits and everything else? So there's a lot of unanswered questions. And let's be honest too, the whole Affordable Care Act / Obamacare is not popular with anyone right now. If you see any polling, and this was not Obamacare, was not Affordable Care Act, but still it was tied to that somewhat. And that raised a red flag for people. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. We may visit this again, probably not this year. I think the governor will try to get things in writing a little more and figure out where we are.
So healthcare is a concern with a lot of people across the state. It's in every election. You hear people talking about healthcare. Is there anything in this legislative session involving healthcare? Yeah,
we're looking at a lot of things in TennCare in particular, and how we provide that to people, make sure we're doing it efficiently. Working with hospitals on where we go there. How are we doing that the most efficient? One thing in particular we're looking about is the CON process, the certificate of need, and would more competition actually help us in the state of Tennessee to hold down health care costs? So yes, every year, because a few years ago, when Governor Haslam came in, we were down to about where 25% of our budget was TennCare. We're back up over the 30% mark now. And so the reason that we aren't funding higher education better than we should be is because of the health care and runaway costs. So we want to address those costs and make sure the taxpayers are getting their best bang for the buck.
In education, the rankings of the state of Tennessee have increased and gotten better over the last several years. One, what do you attribute that to, and what changes are there coming in education this year?
And you can't attribute to one thing. It's like a jigsaw puzzle that everything went together. And if you think about what all we've done over the last 4 years in Governor Haslam's administration, we've had tenure reform to make tenure something that you earn. We've done away with collective bargaining, because I'm one that don't believe that public employees should have that right to collective bargaining. We've done a teacher evaluation system that adds to that to make sure that teachers are evaluated on an annual basis to help them improve as a professional. We've put in charter schools. We've had achievement school districts in areas where we had failing schools. So all of this plays together, and you can't put your finger on one thing. So, and I will say that that's one of my, what I think the crowning achievement over the last few years. We've always been a relatively pro-business state. We've always been relatively well-run physically, but we've been failing educationally. We had our heads in the sand that 46th, 47th in the nation was good enough, and it's not good enough. And so we've raised those scores now into the low 30s, and our goal over the next couple of years is to get in the upper rankings, above 25 in the state of Tennessee. We're going to continue moving forward. standards that we put in place are now being reviewed by the state of Tennessee, the whole Common Core issue to make sure we have Tennessee standards, not Washington, D.C. standards. And I encourage your viewers to log on to a website we have in the state of Tennessee, because we're taking comments from the public, comments from the teachers, and everyone else to make sure we do have the correct standards. But we're not backing up. We're moving forward, pedal to the metal, because I'm proud of what we've been able to do over the last few years in education improvement.
And how important is the funding for education and increasing the funding and pay standards for teachers, et cetera?
I think the governor's hit the nail on the head there. We've always fully funded the what's called the BEP, the Better Education Program. We've always done that. That at least keeps us from going backwards, as we have in funding for higher ed. In K through 12, we've never done that. And if we're asking more for our teachers, and we are, and they're fulfilling that role too. So I have two sisters that are teachers, and I hear from them how it is tougher, but they actually enjoy it because they see the outcome. But if you're going to do that, you need to pay them well. And the governor has made a promise that we're going to be the fastest improving state in the nation in raising teachers' salaries. And we hit a little bump in the road last year when we had the revenues weren't coming in, but hopefully we're making up for that this year. Because again, if you ask people to do more, you ought to be willing to pay them more, and we're doing that in Tennessee.
And the governor's got a new plan to make some of the higher education free for the first 2 years in community colleges, and that's being paid for by the lottery, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So what are your expectations for that program?
Well, I think that could be revolutionary. I do. And we're the only state in the nation doing this right now. Over the years, because we are frugal, because we are a well-run state, we built up a nest egg in the lottery to make sure that it was run well. We end up having about $500 million sitting there. So we'll take that out and use the interest off of that, not touching the money that's sitting there, and be able to fund this program, a last dollar scholarship. And again, if you hear anything from employers, we have a great work ethic here in the state of Tennessee. The atmosphere, the life standards in general, people love where we are, but we have been falling behind some in training for jobs, and nothing's more important than using this to go to 2-year school to get a degree, or the College of Applied Technology to get a degree in welding or whatever it might be. And so I think this will revolutionize what we're doing in the state of Tennessee. And we watch as the president comes in, to be honest, and tries to say, this is such a great idea, let's take it nationwide. Well, we figured out how to pay for that. They haven't. And so I think that's very important, that if you're going to do something like that, show me how you're paying for it. And I hope they don't do that, because I'm perfectly happy with where we are in the state of Tennessee. We have control of this. The last thing I want to do is turn it over to the federal government. I think it could be ruined.
So you're strongly in favor of education being controlled in Tennessee.
100%.
It's different than other parts of the country.
Absolutely. We're doing a great job right now, and let's just keep it here to where every day, the last week or so, we've had some the education, the new commissioner of education, the new executive director of a state board come in and keep us briefed on what we're doing in Tennessee. That's very impressive.
Well, thank you very much for being our guest on the first edition of the Tennessee Capitol Report, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
I love doing these. They get the word out to the people. Just let me know when you want me to do it, and I'll be here.
Being here at the state capitol reminds us of Tennessee's rich political history. We can go across the hall and look out the window and see the statue of President Andrew Jackson, one of the more prominent features on the Capitol grounds. For our very first show, we thought it would be fitting to take a look at our historic Capitol with this video produced by the Tennessee State Library and Archives.
The State Capitol building in Nashville is one of the architectural and historical treasures of Tennessee and of the entire nation. Completed before the start of the Civil War, this National Historic Landmark is one of the nation's oldest working state houses still in use. A structure of great artistic beauty, the Tennessee State Capitol is also the seat of government and a place that embodies the rich history of this state. It has stood for over 150 years and witnessed events of great importance to the American people. Many people, great and ordinary, have passed through its marble corridors. Presidents, school children, famous singers, and tourists alike. The State Capitol is without question the premier historic building in Tennessee, an iconic symbol of our identity as Tennesseans. It is one of the classically beautiful state houses of America. Tennessee has affected the history of the country and shaped the world in many ways. Outside the Capitol are statues and monuments celebrating famous Tennesseans. In addition to Jackson's statue, the grounds include the tomb of President and Mrs. James K. Polk and the statue of World War I hero Alvin C. York, the embodiment of Tennessee's volunteer spirit. The General Assembly flag that flies over the Capitol beneath the American and Tennessee flags is rich in symbolism. Red for America, blue for respect of Tennessee, and white for purity. The 3 stars represent the 3 grand divisions of the state. Golden wheat symbolizes the agricultural heritage of the state, and the gavel represents the power of the people as vested in the state's legislative body. The flag flies above the Capitol only when the General Assembly is in session. To this day, the state capitol stands proud as an edifice of democratic government. It stands not only for our government, but for the people and events that have shaped the volunteer state. This graceful building still reminds us of the forward-looking vision of those who built it. Perhaps more than any other structure that is still with us today, the Capitol embodies Tennessee's rich heritage. Dignified and majestic, it is a symbol of innovation that is grounded in tradition.
Thank you to the Tennessee Secretary of State's office for that video. And if you want to see the entire film called Tennessee State Capitol Grounded in Tradition, it's available on YouTube. And now more Tennessee history. With us right now, the first woman to serve as Speaker of the House, Beth Harwell, joins us. Thank you for stopping by and spending some time with us.
Good to be with you.
Wanted to kind of start off with a fun little clip of kind of how you do business on a day-to-day basis. For most people watching this that haven't seen the House in session, it's kind of organized chaos and it moves very quickly. And we wanted you to watch this clip and react to it for us.
Madam Speaker, I move that all Senate joint resolutions gratulatory memorializing lying on the desk be placed on the consent calendar pursuant to Rule number 17.
Without objection, so order. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Resolutions lying over.
Leader McCormick.
Sold.
It does come across that way, doesn't it?
It does. It's fast-paced and moving, and explain to us how all that works. Apparently there's business being done at a very fast pace.
Right. Well, a lot of it is parliamentary procedure that my members are very familiar with because they've been hearing it. If you've heard it for the first time, it seems like we're moving a little fast. But as we get into the actual debate of bills, it will slow. And my job really as Speaker is to make sure that proper decorum is followed on the floor and parliamentary procedure is followed as well.
You've been Speaker for 3 years now.
That's
and
correct.
Prior to that, you've been around the House for quite some time. What was the main difference in the transition of going from just being a House member to being Speaker?
Well, I guess I never fully realized how much came through the Speaker's office. Everything from the staff that's here employed, to the contracts that come through, to serving on the State Building Commission. There's a lot of responsibility in being Speaker. It's a job that I thoroughly enjoy, and I'm honored that my colleagues would let me serve in this capacity. And I think the real challenge is getting 98 very diverse personalities that care deeply about their districts all on the same page and moving in the same direction, and that's my challenge on a daily basis.
How much has that changed from the first year to the third year?
Well, I guess I'm a little more at ease in the job, a little more comfortable with the rules, and again, I will say I have such appreciation for my members. This is a body that I never ceases to amaze me, the integrity and the quality of the people that I serve with here in the General Assembly. These are all folks that are part-time down here. They don't visit their districts, they live in their districts. And that keeps them close to the people, and I think that's a refreshing thing, and I really think it's what the Founding Fathers had in mind when they created the branches of government.
And you got an office right next door to the
And
beautiful
I have,
library
absolutely,
here.
a beautiful state capitol. And, I invite the public to come down and see it. It's a beautiful historical chamber. And it doesn't matter how many years I've served, every day I walk into that House chamber, there's just a little chill, just a little excitement to be able to be a part of it.
There's been some good news recently on tax collections being up, and it gives the state a little more money to play with there. Does that bode well for some of the pay raises that the governor's proposed for state employees and teachers and things like that?
It does, and then this is a fiscally conservative state, a well-managed state. We go out of our way if we get additional revenue to look for ways to return it to its rightful owner, which is the taxpayer. We have reduced and eliminated a number of taxes since the governor has been in office. But I do think now it's time to focus on making sure that we're paying our state employees and our teachers fairly.
Well, we thought we were going to talk a lot about health care and that didn't make it out of committee. So what are some of the key issues that you'll be facing on the House floor?
Well, you mentioned the first, of course, is always the budget. It's the most important thing we do every year, and Tennesseans should never take for granted that we have a balanced budget every year. We are a low debt and low tax state, and that's a wonderful gift that we give to you as citizens and to your children. And the second thing I think is always a high priority, and that is education, and we will begin again looking at some education issues this year.
So they're looking to increase spending in education, and what are some of the areas that you think they'll be looking at to do so?
Well, teacher salaries, of course, and we want to get to the point where we're rewarding teachers for doing a good job in the classroom. That's ultimately what we want to do, because we have some teachers that are working very hard. We've shown the greatest improvement of any state in the union, and that's remarkable. But we still have a long way to go. We put some reform in place. We want to make sure that our standards stay high and that our evaluation is working hand in hand with what we're teaching in that classroom.
Governor's talked about the Drive to 55 initiative. For those that might not be aware of what that is, explain to us the basics of the Drive to 55 initiative.
Right. As we look at the future of our state, we know that jobs are going to require advanced degrees past high school. So we want to encourage, number one, a higher high school graduation rate, and encourage as many children as possible to go to a technical school, a career school, or college, so that they're prepared for the workforce that's ahead of them.
And of course, they have to get there by passing high school, as you said, and the ratings for Tennessee education has been moving up.
It has been moving up. We still have a way to go, but we're making great strides on encouraging more children to graduate and helping them move to the next step in their career.
Now, I know you reserve the right to comment on stuff before it gets onto the floor, but what kind of things, there's people talking about the laws changing on abortion restrictions and gun rights legislation, and there's a lot of issues that are starting to bubble up. What can we look forward to in this session?
Well, we usually do have those emotionally high-charged issues, and those are two definitely of them. I think with abortion, what we want to do is be reasonable and bring ourselves in compliance with the states around us so that our laws are constitutional and protect the women that are involved in the procedure. We're not going to try to outlaw abortion. We're going to try to protect the women that are involved. I think with gun rights, we usually have a few bills that surface on those, but we want to balance the rights of private ownership and gun rights, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. We have in the past, we'll do it again this year.
Now, there's the Second Amendment, of course, to the Constitution, and how do the states' laws coincide with the federal laws?
Well, we try to work hand in hand. In some ways, our state laws are a little more lax when it comes to gun ownership, and we, of course, require a gun permit in the state of Tennessee to make sure that those people who have a gun are properly trained, and I think that's important to keep that in place.
Okay. That's one of the things that people have been talking about. In the State of the State address, Governor Haslam proposed a new revenue measure to change the business tax collections. I think he called it the Revenue Modernization Act. Do you think it's important to change the revenue side and maybe balance out how things are working with businesses paying taxes?
Sure. I mean, you know, we are a state that does not have an income tax. We rely on sales tax, and so you always have to look at what are you taxing and are you taxing it fairly? And I think the governor in his attempt is to make sure that businesses that are located maybe out of state but do business in the state of Tennessee are also paying their fair share in taxes.
The defeat in Insure Tennessee has put your colleagues right in the crosshairs of critics who say that this proves that Republicans don't care about poor people or those in need. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I disagree. I saw my members really struggle and listen to a week of debate and pulled in experts from other states, really analyzed the program, and ultimately our responsibility is to the taxpayer of this state. And I think my members were uncomfortable getting into a relationship with the federal government where we had nothing in writing that they would live up to their end of the agreement. And also we have a responsibility not to push on to future generations a program that we didn't know how we were going to fully fund it come year 4, 5, 6. So I think ultimately my members made a good decision. We will do more for those people. We want to make Tennessee a healthier place to live, and we'll work toward that goal. And you know, it doesn't preclude the governor from going back in 2 years and reinitiating conversations with the federal government, and hopefully we'll have a president that will be open to a block grant, and we'll be able to put true reform into health care in the state of Tennessee.
Speaker Harwell, thank you very much for spending your time with us on Tennessee Capitol Report.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Do politicians really care about their constituents, especially the poor? Legislation can't fix every problem, but Tennessee's government did show a compassionate side recently when officials gathered to package 50,000 meals to restock Tennessee's food banks in the campaign against hunger.
You know, we sometimes take for granted the abundance of food in this nation, and we shouldn't.
We have thousands of people in Tennessee that suffer from hunger and food insecurity.
Every day at the food bank, we're providing food for hungry children, families, and seniors. And so today, for others to see what we do every day and get the joy from it, it's just an awesome experience.
All three branches of government have come together to pack bags of food for the hungry.
I look forward to doing this again. It's the third time I've done it, and every time it's more special than the last.
It's a great example of Tennesseans working together to help those in need.
It's a hands-on experience. They know that a needy family or a needy child is going to eat this food.
And it's events like these that give us the resources, the food banks in the state of Tennessee, the resources to feed the hungry.
It's just another reason for all of us to be proud of the state that we call home.
Thank you to Jesse Alvey for that story. That's our show for today. It's been our pleasure to bring you the news, the newsmakers, and the issues facing the Tennessee General Assembly in this session. The next few months will be critical, and we'll continue to keep you engaged with our lawmakers on Tennessee Capitol Report. I'm Chip Hoback.
Tennessee Capitol Report is made possible in part by
Some games aren't played for glory. Some are played for more important reasons. That's why we partner with schools to re-energize physical education with Shape the State.
And with support by the following members of the Tennessee Credit Union League. With additional corporate support from AT&T, Rethink Possible.